Here are 7 wide receivers we like at RotoWire in 2025 fantasy football drafts, starting out with Drake London, Atlanta Falcons. Look, London's numbers were good last year. 100 catches, 1,271 yards, and 9 touchdowns. London's being drafted just inside the top 10 wide receivers in average drafts. Those numbers aren't earth-shattering, but guess what? There may be more to come this year, and we fully expect that because in the last 6 games of 2024, Drake London averaged 94 yards and 11.3 targets, becoming that clear alpha receiver we were hoping for since he was drafted in the top of the first round. Now, Michael Penix came in. Last 3 games of the season. How did Drake London do? Well, those 94 yards per game went up to 117 per game. Those 11.3 targets in the last 6 games went up to 13 targets per game. So go with 7 catches per contest and 2/3 of a touchdown per game. This is the type of receiver who could be the overall wide receiver 3 or 4 with that level of volume. And don't discount it because Atlanta last year down the stretch, they went to an offense that heavily featured Bijan Robinson as a runner, Drake London as a receiver. And it's going to be the same this year. Get Drake London because he is going to exceed that ADP. Next, RotoWire likes Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. And look, he has been a disappointment for where we've drafted him in prior years. He's not been a disappointment as a player because he gets 1,042 to 1,104 yards every season, always between 83 and 101 catches, and he's always between 147 and 168 targets. So we know the volume's there. But here's the deal. Justin Fields comes in, and I know people are like, oh man, well, that's not really helping the equation. Don't forget, Justin Fields with the Bears in 2023. What did he do? He had DJ Moore. Well, DJ Moore had a career year, 96 catches, 1,364 yards, and 8 touchdowns on only 136 targets. Well, we already know Garrett Wilson normally sees at least 147, and he's probably going to see closer to that high end 168. And Garrett Wilson, look, at least as good as DJ Moore, maybe equal, maybe a little better, but certainly not much worse. And there's no reason to think that Garrett Wilson can't be a super high-end producer, and you're getting him around wide receiver 15. You might reach up 1 or 2 spots to get him because he could be that volume king who also flashes the upside we've been looking for a couple of years now. Speaking of DJ Moore, he's the next receiver we like at RotoWire, and you usually can get DJ Moore around wide receiver 20, but the math just doesn't work here. 2 years ago, DJ Moore, again with Justin Fields, was the wide receiver 6. Last year was a disaster in Chicago. Offensive line was terrible. Caleb Williams under siege, a bunch of bubble screens in a pass game. DJ Moore was still the wide receiver 14. And yet we're paying wide receiver 20 costs for him. Yet the entire Bears situation has improved drastically. Interior offensive line completely revamped and fixed. Coach Ben Johnson was able to work wonders with Jared Goff. Do you think he could do that with Caleb Williams, who has a lot of talent but was given no chance to succeed last year? Yes, I think that is definitely the case. DJ Moore has been a superstar since he entered the league, but he has always been hampered by terrible quarterback play, both in Carolina and in Chicago. This is the year where Moore can at least repeat that wide receiver 6 season he had a couple of years ago. And if he misses that lofty number, he's not going to be very far off. He is one of the biggest steals in fantasy football drafts this year. The next wide receiver we like at RotoWire is DK Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, DK Metcalf, you get him around wide receiver 24 in drafts. And here's the thing. We don't think a lot at this stage of Aaron Rodgers. He's lost a lot, seemingly. He wants to get the ball out quickly. But here's the thing. Who else is there besides DK Metcalf in the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver group? Calvin Austin, not so much. Roman Wilson, please. DK Metcalf, even though it's an Arthur Smith offense where the alpha receiver normally sees about 110 to 120 targets, lowish number, but DK Metcalf might be able to slightly exceed that. But even if not, we were already talking from OTAs about how they want to run a lot of slants. And we know this offense, back to the Ryan Tannehill days, you do play action. You throw some slants. A.J. Brown was in that offense. We saw that work out really well. We saw Drake London do really well with an Arthur Smith offense. But DK Metcalf is going to be Aaron Rodgers' safety net. And with the big frame he has, there will be plenty of opportunity for Aaron Rodgers to get that ball to Metcalf in space, to get him in stride, to get a lot of yards after the catch. Might not be bombs away, but it might be death by a million intermediate routes, and that's going to be a beautiful thing. DK Metcalf should exceed that ADP. If you're enjoying this breakdown, take a second, hit like and subscribe. It helps us keep the fantasy advice coming. If you want even more of RotoWire's tools, rankings, and insights, we got a 15% discount for just our YouTube users. You head to RotoWire.com, you choose your subscription, you use the code YouTube15 at checkout. Next receiver we like at RotoWire is Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, he dislocated his ankle last year. Very, very unfortunate ending to a season and garbage time in a game against the Ravens. That said, Godwin is not recovering from an ACL. It's not a catastrophic injury. Godwin, as of now, is tentatively expected to be ready for training camp, certainly ready for week 1. Even if he misses a week or two, would not be the end of the world, but this is not the same type of injury recovery, as I said, an ACL would be. Just remember last year, and I know Liam Cohen ran the offense last year in Tampa, and now he's gone, but Baker Mayfield has a history with slot receivers. Last year with Godwin, we saw 8 to 13 targets in 6 of 7 games, at least 64 or more yards in those contests. His average Chris Godwin's in those 7 games, 7 catches, 82 yards, 0.7 of a touchdown. He was on his way to a top 15 wide receiver finish. And like I said earlier, Baker Mayfield has a history. Go back to Jarvis Landry. Landry in the healthy years for both of them was averaging close to 990 yards a season. But Chris Godwin is a star player. Chris Godwin was easily out-targeting Mike Evans last year. Again, no Cohen, but Baker Mayfield has that connection with Godwin, and I don't see that going anywhere soon. And you can get Godwin right around wide receiver 30, another great value. Another receiver we like is Jerry Jeudy of the Cleveland Browns. Sure, he has some drop issues, but you know what? Gets peppered with targets. He had 1,229 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. But we saw a monstrous effort from week 8 on. What did Jerry Jeudy average in the second half of that season? 6.9 catches, 96 yards, only 0.3 of a touchdown, but 10 targets per game. Now, in my mind, in Cleveland, I expect Joe Flacco to get the starting job, not Kenny Pickett, not Dylan Gabriel, and certainly not Shedeur Sanders. And we know Joe Flacco may not be the greatest quarterback in the world. He might make a lot of mistakes, but he can sling the ball, and he certainly can support some high-end wide receiver play, again, at this stage of his career. The other receiver we like is Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans. Calvin Ridley quietly went over 1,000 yards last year, only 64 catches, but realistically, he was better as the season went on. After week 5, 7 straight games at least 41 yards. Again, I know it's not a huge yardage number, but we saw especially from week 8 to 18, his PPR average went from 9 points before that. The PPR average week 8 to 18, 14.2, averaging 76 yards, 5 catches, and 7.5 targets. Now he gets Cam Ward as a quarterback. And Cam Ward may not be a superstar, but he certainly isn't Will Levis, and he's certainly not Mason Rudolph. Calvin Ridley, even though he's turning 30, is the clear alpha receiver in this offense. He should see significant targets, and Ridley is a good player who's just had some bad circumstances in recent years.